Good morning everyone. You all are welcome to the GSBTM sponsored NBTCBC e-crash workshop. Today, the speaker of today is Dr. Jitendriya Panigrahi, who is Assistant Professor in Biotechnology at Shri A.N. Patel PG Institute of Science and Research. He is PhD from Patan University. He has more than 16 years of teaching experience. He has published more than 17 peer-reviewed papers in international journals. Since 2015, he is involved in GSBTM conducted crash workshop. He has expertise in the field of plant physiology. I welcome Dr. Jitendriya Panigrahi. Please.
Thank you, madam, for your nice words. Student, very good morning. Today we will discuss about plant physiology. I will start from here itself. Here you mark, we are having two broad terms. One is plant, another one is physiology. So in case of plants, plant includes three parts or three categories. One is herbs, second one is shrub, and third one is tree. Togetherly we can say these are the three categories which comes under plant. Second part is physiology. So physiology is totally the internal functions of any living organism. Internal functions. So in this category we can have different topics. What are the different topics we have? That is plant water relations, mineral nutrition, photosynthesis. Photosynthesis has already been taken by Madhumita madam. So I will not discuss that one. Fourth one will be translocation of organic substances. Fifth, growth and development, photoperiodism, nitrogen metabolism, whatever we can try to convince or conclude under this session. So the first topic, that is plant water relationship. All of you know that all living organisms require water. So basically the formula all of you know, water is H2O, and H2O is a polar molecule. Here polar, why it is named as polar? Because the structure of water, when you try to draw, at that time you just mark that this will be the structure. So as oxygen is highly electronegative in nature, what will happen? It will tend to pull the electron towards itself. That's why it becomes delta negative, whereas hydrogen becomes delta positive. So once there will be two poles created, one becomes positive, another becomes negative, this becomes considered as a polar molecule. Along with that, it forms a V shape. Instead of tetrahedral structure, it will make a shape of V. If I will ask, in a single water molecule, let us say only one water molecule, this bond is covalent bond. In a single water molecule, it is a covalent bond, whereas in between two water molecules, it becomes hydrogen bond. How it will create? It will be like this. Let us say here another hydrogen, here another hydrogen. So what would happen? This one will be the oxygen part. So this bond will be your hydrogen bond. but in a single water molecule it is covalent bond. And due to these properties, it is also excellent solvent. All the living organisms generally depends upon water molecule to create a excellent solvent one, and easily there will be movement occurs. What are the other properties? Other property is high specific heat. High specific heat means the water has large quantities of energy and without much any temperature increase, so that it will be a good molecule. Fourth one is high heat of vaporization. What does it means? That means the energy necessary to go from liquid to gas can be possible, but it requires much temperature. That's why the plants are generally cool in nature inside it. The important one is cohesive nature, as because in some plants the height is too much. So from the ground level it has to reach to the topmost part, and how it can move, that is the property is called as cohesion. So single water molecule, they attracts with the other water molecule. Likewise, there is a continuum occurs from the ground level to the topmost part, and this makes the water possible to reach to the topmost part of the plant. There are certain concepts of water, and those concepts were: first one is diffusion, second one is osmosis, third one is imbibition, and fourth one is water potential. When you discuss about diffusion part, as you know, this will be movement from the higher concentration to lower concentration, and there is no need of any barriers. No barriers are there. So if there is no barriers, then there is no question of any problem, so that it can reach from the higher to the lower concentration part. Whereas osmosis, there is a barrier, and that barrier is called as semi-permeable membrane. If you try to define osmosis, then what might be its definition? Its definition is movement of solvent molecules. Movement of solvent molecules from its higher concentration to its lower concentration through a semi-permeable membrane, and this is that barrier. So what would happen if in some bookish language, if you try to explain it, then what would happen? They have given that the movement of solvent from lower solution to higher solution. Why they have given lower solution to higher solution? Let us take this example. This is one of the container. This is the water molecule along with salt. This is also water molecule along with salt, and this one is the semi-permeable membrane. Now question comes, as the definition indicates, from which part it will move towards another part. According to the bookish definition, that is solution of lower concentration to solution of higher concentration. Here what would happen? The salt's concentration are less, and here salt concentration are more. So it is more salty as compared to this one. That means this A part contains more water as compared to the B part. That's why the movement will be occurs from A to B. This is the best way to explain the osmosis. And in case of osmosis, as the solute concentration increases, it creates solute pressure or osmotic pressure. More the osmotic pressure, then what would happen? It requires more the water to enter through it. So for that reason, once there will be equilibrium occurs, then what would happen? This movement of solvent can occur. Next concept is imbibition. Imbibition, this is one of the exceptional concept, you can say. This is one of the surface phenomena. Why it is surface phenomena? Because there is a term utilized that is called as adsorption. Instead of absorption, there will be adsorption by solid colloids. That means, in simple way to understand, if I will put my pen in my hand, that means the pen is adhere with in my hand but not absorbed by my hand. So this phenomenon will be called as imbibition, or you can say, as because it is just touching to the surface, you can say this is a surface phenomenon. Let us take one example. The question may ask in your exam the first phenomena which appears at the time of seed germination, because when you try to put the seeds in a beaker which contains water in it, the first phenomena which occurs, the seed first touches to the water, and the answer will be imbibition. Likewise, the other examples of imbibition are, let us say, crevices in case of rocks. You can find out some break in the rocks part, as well as in case of railway tracks, you can just find out there will be crack may occurs, or they put certain gap in between that, or wooden logs during a rainy season there will be swelling in the wooden part, as well as the tightening of doors during that period. These may be due to imbibition. So any of the question may ask, then the best answer will be imbibition. You can tick out the imbibition part. Next phenomena is water potential. As here mentioned, this is potential, means the potency of water, how much it is potential to work certain thing. So it will be totally energy concept, and it is the magnitude is negative in sign. Let us say here -2, and it is a pressure unit, that's why it can be measured in megapascal. Here you mark that this is 3 molar, whereas this is 5 molar, and the magnitude is here is a positive sign. But in case of water potential, it is a negative sign, and the answer will be the movement of solvent from higher potential of water to its lower potential. That would be the answer if question asked regarding that. So this is that part. Now come to the tonicity. What is the meaning of the word tonicity? Tonicity means the measure of osmotic pressure gradient of two solutions when they are separated by a semi-permeable membrane. In simple word, there are 3 types. What are those? First one is hypertonic. Hypertonic means they have higher salt concentration, solute concentration, like sea water is hypertonic in nature. Hypotonic, there will be low concentration of salt, and it is the best example is pond water or river, that is hypotonic in nature. And another one is the balance between both these sides. Both these cells, wherever there will be a semi-permeable membrane, if both the concentration are similar, then we can call it as isotonic. So best way to visually, if you try to understand these 3, why there is a requirement of these 3 tonicity, because if you try to place a cell in any of these environment, what would happen to that cell? Because in our body there will be this tonicity changes time to time, and accordingly how the cell behaves, for that reason you have to have knowledge about this one. Let us say this is the hypertonic solution. When you put this cell in a hypertonic solution, what would happen? Water will be exit from this cell, and there will be chances of shrinkage of the cell. I will ask you one question regarding this after this slide. Second one is isotonic solution. If you try to put a cell over here, there will not any change, because in and out of the water is same concentration, so there is no way of any problem. Third one is hypotonic solution. Hypotonic case, as because this is low in solute, when you put a cell in the solution part, then water will enters into the cell. So what would happen? There will be chances of swelling in that cell. Let us take one example of it, and you try to solve it. So this is that condition, plant cell putting in a hypotonic solution, water moves in, here you mark, then you have to remember water in when you put the cell in hypotonic solution, whereas isotonic no net water movement, hypotonic case the cell shrinkage occur. Let us take one example. Let us take, this is a fresh water container. I am taking some oceanic fish. Okay, what would happen to this fish if the oceanic fish is put in fresh water? What would happen? All of you can say that fresh water is hypertonic in nature. It is hypotonic in nature. So the concept suggests that hypotonic means the water will enter into the cell. So what would happen? This becomes now a larger size of fish. Okay, this will be swelling occur. Whereas, let us say if you try to take a container with the oceanic water, now you collect fish from the pond, what would happen to this one? Oceanic water means it is hypertonic in nature. It is hypertonic in nature. That means the salt, the water will moving from the cell to the surrounding part. So what would happen to this fish? What would happen? There will be shrinkage occur. So now it would be clear. Okay, now switch over to the next properties of different properties of cell. When water enters, let us say this is a leaf, this is a leaf, and water enters into it from its adjacent cell, then what would happen? There is one capacity of this cell to becomes fully stretched. In simple language, you can say this will be fully stretched. Okay, fully stretched. But what would happen? It will not burst further. It will not burst further. Why? Because there will be a pressure called as wall pressure. The wall will create a pressure that will inhibit from bursting of this cell. So there are two pressure, one is turgor pressure, another one is wall pressure. So the pressure exerted outwardly against the cell wall by the expanding protoplast is called as turgor pressure, and if it is fully stressed, then we can use the word turgid. If a cell is turgid or if a plant parts is turgid, what does it means? It is fully stretched, fully water, but it is not further stretched. Why? Because it is being avoided by wall pressure. It will be inhibited by wall pressure. Whereas the opposite of this one will be, if water will be moving away from the plant cells, then what would happen? There is a condition where there is no water available, then that cell will be considered as acidic. Okay, so this is regarding the turgidity, turgor pressure and wall pressure. It is important during certain physiological phenomena that we will discuss. Now what are the other properties or concept of water body? First property is the field capacity. Whatever soil or ground level is there, they are mostly taken of water up to a extent. Later on what would happen? The remaining water will be moving away or drained away. Then we can say that the maximum capacity, which is the water is being taken, that becomes your field capacity, and the remaining one will be drained away. Okay, whereas another property is they have a high surface tension. What is the plus point of high surface tension? It will tends to minimize air water interface. Okay, it will tends to minimize air water interface. That's why it can move from one part to the other, both in the soil to the root hair cell as well as to the topmost part of the plant. Third property is As I have already mentioned, one of the surface phenomena, that is imbibition, because of its adhesive force. Adhesive force means, let us say this is a pipe which is waxy in nature, then what would happen? Water can move just touching to this wall but not absorbed by the wall. So this property is also available, and it will create a large surface area that will make easily uptaking of the water to the topmost part. And mostly water moves in which way? There will be bulk flow. The other terms of bulk flow is mass flow. They move in a bulk, okay, down the pressure gradient. Next phenomena is soil hydraulic conductivity. Soil hydraulic conductivity, it is the measure of the ease with which water moves through the soil, and depends which type of soil it possesses. Let us say dry soil or muddy soil or the normal soil, depends. Accordingly, what would happen? It can move through that. And if the dry soil, very dry soil will be there will be a problem that is called as water potential will be fall below the range, and we can call them as permanent wilting point. You must have seen that during summer season, daytime the plant gets shrink, but in the evening time again it becomes refreshed enough, and that point will not consider to be permanent wilting point. Permanent wilting point means the next step of permanent wilting point will be the death of that cell, as well as you can say the plants. So it is generally not acceptable to the plant. And the parts of the plant which is absorb this water are root hairs. Question may ask that which part of the plant hairs absorbs the root hair. This is, let us say, the taproot system, primary, then secondary, then tertiary, followed by root hairs. And root hairs are the parts which supports the system of absorbing the water from the soil. Okay, and there are three modes by means of which the water enters into the plant cell and reach to the topmost part via different system, that we will discuss one by one. Let us discuss this first. Let us say there will be movement occur. As I have mentioned here, the root hair will absorb. So if you take the anatomy of the roots, the first part will be epiblema, then there will be cortex, then there will be endodermis, then there will be pericycle, then there will be your vascular bundle. Vascular bundle here means the xylem part, and the last part will be the pith, P-I-T-H. Okay. So during this movement, what would happen? Each parts having different types of cells. Let us say parenchymatous cells mostly, and these parenchymatous cells allows the water to enter into this flow. But particularly in case of endodermis, there are two types of cells. One is called as passage cell. One is called passage cell. Another one is called as Casparian strip. So what is the role of passage cell? It allows the water to enter through it and it will reach to the other parts of the plant. Whereas Casparian strip doesn't allow the water to pass through it, rather it will obstruct. Why? Because it contains suberin, a waxy coating. So how the flow will occur? Like this. Okay. So here epiblema, then cortex, then endodermis, then pericycle, then vascular bundle, then tip. But the movement will be by means of these three ways. Because inside this cell there are certain parts which may allow apoplastic movement, in some cases transmembrane, in some cases symplast, that I will discuss. And if you suppose provide two conditions, let us say low temperature or there is no oxygen. If these two conditions occurs, then the water uptake will definitely decrease. And another thing is, if you supply the respiratory inhibitor, that is cyanide. Mostly cyanide capsules were there. If it is being taken off, then it is dangerous for that cell to live, and there will be death of that cell. And you cannot say whether it is, the taste of it is sour or sweet. In one case, there were two people. They tried to test the cyanide, and they tried to mention whether it is sour or sweet. They can only wrote S letter, and the remaining are not. So you cannot predict whether the taste of cyanide is sour or sweet, but you don't want to take it anyway. And in case of root, there will be a pressure creation occur. What may be the condition, that we will discuss, and that pressure can be measured by means of an instrument. You just note it down, that is manometer. And this manometer can measure up to a pressure limit of 0.05 to maximum of 0.5 megapascal. What are the other features? Now let us discuss that apoplastic, symplastic and transmembrane. Here you mark, let us say this is cells were adjacent to each other. When the movement through the non-living entity, when movement of water through non-living entity, then we can call it as apoplast. And mostly the non-living entity here, it is cell wall. That means one cell is passing its content via cell wall, then we can consider it as apoplast. Whereas if the cell is interlinked with another cell via a living entity, this living entity is named as plasmodesmata. It is named as plasmodesmata. This is one of the living entity between two adjacent cells. So you should not confuse with another term that is called as middle lamella. Middle lamella is the cementing agent between two cells, whereas plasmodesmata is connecting link between two adjacent cells. Let us take an example. In a wall, in between two bricks, there will be a cement placed, and that cement part, in case of the plant, is middle lamella, whereas plasmodesmata is this pipe which connects two rooms, okay, through which you can supply the different wires. So if plasmodesmata is there, if it is living in nature, the flow will be simplest. If it is cell wall, if it is non-living, then it is apoplast. Transmembrane parts, it is in between them via different protein channels, but mostly it is following simplest or apoplastic movement. Question we will cover up later on regarding this. So root pressure, when it will occur? When there will be high concentration of water inside the soil, and at the same time the movement of water cannot be possible via transpiration, then we can say that there will be creation of root pressure. So the opposite thing is that when transpiration rates are high, then what would happen? Water uptake will be very rapid, and there will be that a positive pressure never develops in the xylem, and the root pressure will be in a normal mode. Okay, and if it is not there, then what would happen? The root having a pressure, and that water will be ejected out in form of which thing? In form of liquid droplets. And these liquid droplets, if it is being removed, mostly in the edges of their leaves, then there is a phenomenon called as guttation. So how it will occur? You just mark, these are the leaf edges where you can mark the liquid droplets. Mostly you can feel it during the late evening or early morning part, you can find it out, this type of thing. If you are going for morning walk and in the garden, you can feel it. Okay, and this leaf is possess one part that is called as hydathode. That part is called as hydathode, and that is mostly found in case of the vein endings. Vein means this is the vein part, leaf lamina, this is the vein part, and through which the exudation can be possible. Mostly we are using this word exudation, means that is created by means of pressure, that's why. Okay, so the condition, what might be the condition when guttation may take place? Transpiration will be low or suppressed, whereas relative humidity is high. At that time there will be, this can be possible. Okay, now come to the other aspect of the plant parts. Here vascular bundle comprises of two things, one is xylem, another one is phloem. Xylem having four components: tracheids, second one is vessels, third one is xylem parenchyma, fourth one is xylem fibers. So out of which this is throughout living in nature, this is throughout living in nature, whereas initially these two parts during the young condition they are living, but later on they are dead in nature. Okay, and the movement of water occurs through the vessels part. So what it will happen? This is one of the example. All the angiosperms having vessel elements, but in some cases of gymnosperm, let us say nettles, they are having vessel elements available. And as I have mentioned, these two are dead in nature. That means it will not provide any resistance. It will not provide any resistance, and it can move to the topmost part. So it will provide low resistance pathway. Here you mark low resistance pathway it will make, so that it can reach one of the example given, that is tallest trees, let us say redwood, that is Sequoia sempervirens. Another one is Eucalyptus reginens. They can attain a height of about 100 meter. You just think none of the motor system working throughout its lifespan. Okay, but plants have that system, and that part is your vessels. Okay, it doesn't allow the water to absorb through it, and it is non-living in nature. That's why it works as a pipe-like system. Okay, and there will be lignified cell walls available. Lignified cell walls are dead in nature. It is hexagonal in nature, and the walls are, there is no gap in between them. Thick wall, subsidiary cell also having such type of parts, so that the resistance will not be outer more. Got it? Now come to the, that is transpiration. Transpiration case, the phenomena suggests that the movement of water, and it is in form of which case? It is in form of vapor, water vapor. In case of guttation, it is water liquids. So water vapor, movement of water from the external aerial parts of the plants in form of vapor is called as transpiration. And the transpiration may of various types. One is lenticular transpiration, another one is cuticular transpiration, but the most acceptable or the maximum transpiration occurs, that is stomatal transpiration. Stomatal transpiration. If we are considering about this stomatal transpiration, then here you mark the shape of the guard cells. There will be a inner thick wall. Inner thick wall is there, this one. Okay, whereas outer thin wall will be there. It also possesses chloroplast in it, but it is not so much functional. Okay, It also causes vacuoles, and due to this vacuole there will be absorption can be possible. Clear? During daytime mostly the stomata opens, and stomata during opening time, what would happen, it allows the water to pass through it towards the outer surface. Simultaneously the carbon dioxide enters into the leaf cells via these guard cells, and there is a ratio that we will discuss later on. So during daytime this may happen, other physiological function we will also discuss. During the night time mostly this will be closed. Some exception are there that may be covered in case of photosynthesis. There is a plant called as CAM plant, CAM, Crassulacean acid metabolism. These CAM plants generally, this CAM plant mostly the stomata open during the night time, the reverse cases in all those other things. Okay, and broadly if you try to understand the transpiration, here you mark there will be these root hairs enter into these plant cells, okay, via the different parts of the system. This is endodermis. Then via xylem it will reach to the leaf cell. There will be entry of water over here. Then what would happen, the cell becomes turgid in nature, whereas the atmosphere having less amount of water. So what would happen, there will be imbalance occur in between them. So there is a pressure creation in case of the guard cells, and there will be opening of the guard cells, and water will be evaporated out through these guard cells. Okay, in details if you try to understand the mechanism behind the opening and closing of stomata, the first point is it mostly accept the blue light, and this blue light will target this system. I will show in diagrammatic view. Let us discuss the other concept. During daytime these three things happen. What would happen? During daytime the triose phosphate may be converted into sucrose form. Second thing, the polymeric form of glucose, that is starch, may be converted into glucose form during the daytimes, and TP may be converted into malate depending upon the respective plant. So what is the common thing behind here? The common thing is that all of them are the simpler form, or you can say mostly the monomorphic form of the respective compound. So if they are in monomorphic form, then what would happen? They are considered as salt, and if these salts are available in the plant cell, let us say this is leaf cell, if the concentration of this one, let us say these are the salt concentration, then what would happen? It requires more water to enter through it. Why? Because the osmotic pressure increases, and that's why the adjacent cell will be having more water as compared to this one, and it requires more water. And what would happen? Salt will be there, along with more water will be there, so it gets a fully stressed one. A fully stressed leaf, we can call it as turgid in nature. And once it is turgid in nature, what does it mean? That means it is fully stressed, the wall is creating pressure so that it will not swell more. At the time, in the atmosphere part, there will be less concentration of water. So what would happen? The stomata has to open up. At that time, there will be water vapor will be moving out. Okay, so during that case there will be this opening system occurs. So that is definition, you just go through it. When solutes increases in the guard cell, at that time opening of stomata occurs. So two things you have to remember: one, solute concentration increases; another, light must be available. And once solute concentration increases means there will be turgidity, and once turgidity occurs, there will be pressure in the stomata, and stomata gets open. Okay, so this phenomena, and by looking at this you can say that all these suggest regarding this movement of water vapor from the guard cells. Regarding this first point, let us discuss in this diagrammatic basis. Okay, there is a sensory transduction cascade system. Cascade means there will be a chain occurs one after the other. The processes are going on. So once this guard cell, you just mark this is totally like that of the guard cell structure. Okay, when it receives blue light, it is targeting chloroplast, where you can find out a pigment called as zeaxanthin. That zeaxanthin moving out from this chloroplast to the cytosol, and it will target one enzyme that is called as serine threonine kinase. And what is the role of serine threonine kinase? It allows the hydrogen ion out. It allows the hydrogen ion out of this cell, whereas potassium ion or the other monomeric ion like chloride ion may enter into the cell. And due to this opening, due to this H plus ion moving out, then what would happen? The pH disturbs and there will be chances of the opening of the guard cell. So this may be one of the mechanism, you can say, by means of which the stomata can open up. And another acceptable one, the theory is the cohesion tension theory proposed by two scientists, Dixon and Joly. They proposed that due to this cohesion tension, here cohesion, as already mentioned you in the previous slides, that cohesion, the water attracts with each other from the ground level to the topmost part by means of this process, and this continuum can be maintained to make the leaf cell that is more turgid. And this turgidity, what would happen? There will be a tension creation occurs in this part. Atmosphere will be having less water, so what would happen? There will be a tension creation in the guard cell, and it will open up to release the water in form of water vapor. Earlier slide I told you that the guard cell is involved in two processes. One is that is removal of water, that is transpiration. Second one is intake of carbon dioxide. So there is a ratio between these two, and that ratio is called as transpiration ratio. What is the definition? How much amount of water it is being taken by the plant, or so the removal by the plant, that is transpired by the plant, divided by what is the incoming carbon dioxide useful or associated with photosynthesis. So depending upon three varieties, let us say C3, C4 and Chem. Earlier you must have discussed about, learned about C3. All the mesophytic plants having this C3, that is first product, that is PGA. You must have learned it, phosphoglyceric acid, PGA. C4 case, there will be first product OAA, that is a 4 carbon compound, that's why it is named as C4. Whereas Chem case, it is like that of the C4, but it is the stomata is opening during the night time. So once we are considering about transpiration ratio, what would happen? The C3 releases more water. How much? It is releasing about 500 water, or ratio become 500. Whereas C4 it is 250 and Chem it is 50. What does it suggest? That which one is more water use efficient? As because it releases more C3 plant than this one, than this one. So you can say that it is the Chem plants are highly water use efficient. How it can be possible? By taking this reverse of transpiration ratio. Reverse of transpiration ratio means 1 upon, let us say in case of C3, it is 1 upon 500. What does it mean? The value comes to 0.003. Whereas in case of C4 case, it becomes 0.004. Whereas Chem case, it is 0.02. What does it suggest? That chem plants are highly water use efficient, whereas which one is losing more water? It is C3. So in both the way you have to remember which one is having more, which one is having low. Accordingly you can define which one is highly water use efficient. What might be the different factors that is associated with transpiration? There are several factors. One of them is biological clock. That is, plants actually follow the universal law or nature's law. It is open during the day. It is open during the daytime and closed during the night time. It is not human being that there will be shift duty occurs. So plant follows this thing and they maintain this biological clock very perfectly. They never disrupt this process. Second one is, if water availability is less in this soil, as well as one of the inhibitor, that is abscisic acid, one of the plant hormones, if it is providing to the plant cell, then there will be chances of closing of stomata. Likewise, as I have mentioned, the guard cell allows the carbon dioxide to move from the outside to inside, and the plant generally following the photosynthesis process, the plant cell without having or less of carbon dioxide concentration, at that time stomata gets open so that carbon dioxide may in and photosynthesis to perform. And which one is the best light which support? That is blue light is the most effective one. As already we have discussed that there is enzyme system activates here, another system, that is hydrogen ion ATPase, where hydrogen ion moving out from the chloroplast part to the cytosol, and that support this system. And you just mark here, it is 10 times more effective as red light. So blue light is the most perfect light for this one. So that was up to the guttation and transpiration. One is water vapor, another one is liquid form. Now come to the next system, that is mineral nutrition. In case of mineral nutrition, the first thing is, it question may ask, during seed germination what are the different things required by the plant? The requirement will be only water and oxygen, nothing else. Then what is the role of mineral nutrition or minerals? Because the seeds already have the potency of certain minerals in it, and that will be in polysaccharide form or polymeric form. Once it is attached with the water, it gets converted into the simpler form and it is being utilized for a time being. Apart from that, the minerals, certain minerals are required by the plant and which are considered as essential. Why it is essential? Because without its absence, the plant cannot able to complete its life cycle. Further, abstinence suggests that it must have certain physiological role. Otherwise, it is of no use. That's why essential will be coming under this category. First suggested by Arnold and Stout, second suggested by Epstein, and both must be fulfilled by that element, so we can consider them as mineral nutrition. Okay. So there are two categories. One is macronutrients, another one is micronutrient. Why it has been mentioned macro? Because it requires in more amount, whereas micro mostly it is in trace amount. No doubt both of them are required to fulfill the growth of the plant, and mostly it is being available in which form or accepted by in which form? Calcium ion, you must have seen, +2, magnesium +2, nitrogen case it may be nitrate or nitrite, potassium +1, but these are the plus charges. Okay. Whereas anions case, macronutrients case, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur. You may ask, how can you remember this macronutrient lists? Because in exam it may ask that among the following which one is not a micronutrients or not a macronutrients, or vice versa question may ask. So the simple way to understand, I am writing here the abbreviated form which I have made, so it will be easier for you. You can note it down in your book. One is, let me write first. I remembered it like this. That is Chop, Keynes, Mega, Cafe. Here you mark carbon, second one is hydrogen, third one is oxygen, which is mostly available in the nature, so nothing to worry about the plant. Further, phosphorus, potassium, nitrogen, sulfur, magnesium, calcium, which is already mentioned over here. You can just go through it. Whereas iron can be considered both as macro as well as micro. Some plant require in more amount, that's why it has been placed over here. So Chopkins Mega Cafe, this is the abbreviated form by means of which you can remember this, and you can find it out the list. So altogether 33617, and these are the 10 are the approximate in requirement in all the plants, whereas in some cases iron may be required. So what is your goal? You have to remember the macronutrient lists by heart, so that you can able to distinguish between these. Whereas micronutrient case, these are the examples. Let us say copper, iron, manganese, nickel, zinc, boron, chlorine, molybdenum. These are the requirements. Now question comes, one may ask, if it is not there in case of plant, how can we detect? Plants cannot able to say that, sir, I require this much of potassium or nitrogen. So they will show certain symptoms. These are the features why they are required. All of you know that why there is requirement of nitrogen, because they are part of the different structural properties, amino acid, protein, nucleic acid, like that, as well as certain coenzymes. Whereas sulfur, that is constituent of certain lipoleic acid. So you have to remember this. Phosphorus, it is involved in ATP. Likewise, the other things you have to remember from this category. Here I would like to mention this part because they are important. One is calcium, another one is, sorry, this one not, calcium, chlorine and manganese. These three are required during your photolysis of water. You must have read in case of photosynthesis. Oxygen evolution case, if these three elements are not there, photosynthesis cannot be able to start. That is photolysis of water. Likewise, the other components you have to remember. Let us say copper involved in which case? Let us say the uricase as well as cytochrome oxidase, and the most important one is plastocyanine. That is photosystem 1 case, you can get it this one. As well as nickel case, the urease enzyme or the hydrogenase enzyme require this. Without that it will not function. Likewise, the nitrogenase enzyme requires MOFE complex, that's why it is a must. And if it is not there, there will be certain deficiency symptoms occur. That we will cover up later. So as earlier I told you that plant require mineral nutrition. So scientists thought that if the plant is supplied with mineral nutrition, whether plants can able to grow or not. Along with that, it requires oxygen. So they tried to prepare a system which is without having any soil. That's why it is called as soil-less culture. And they named it as hydroponic growth system. And mostly it is being taken up or utilized by Israel scientists. And it will be like that. Here you mark, the water is flow through this pipe, and plants having this water with minerals, and they are easily grown and very healthy plants you can get it. But it requires a support system. But wherever soil is not there, it can be applicable And scientists later thought that why roots are hanging in water throughout day and night. They tried to tilt the pipe and there will be a continuous flow of this nutrient occur, and they try to maintain this and they named it as nutrient filled growth system. Later on scientists again thought that if only moisture will be available to the roots, what would happen? So it will be like this. It is aeroponic system. Aeroponic case, the roots are in hanging condition and the lower part of this one with having that mineral solution, it is rotated by some motors, so it will be sprinkled and available to the roots, and this is being taken up by the plants, and it is, that's why named it as aeroponics. It will be healthy plants. You just mark how the roots were grown, very good growth. Now come to the deficiency symptoms. So that nutrient solution which was utilized in those pipes are Hoagland nutrient solution. What is the importance of this nutrient solution is that plant requires these elements in their proper form. As you know, nitrogen is available in the atmosphere about 72%, but it is not available to the plant. Plants cannot take up directly. So it requires in which form? Either nitrate or nitrite form. That's why there is a process called nitrification. Likewise, the other elements were available to the plant in their proper form. Here it has to be mentioned in a important way that earlier another scientist, he prepared mineral solution. His name is Knopp. So Knopps first of all prepared mineral solution, but it was not available to the plant in their proper form. Why? Because the iron gets oxidized and it is not available to the plant. For that reason, Hoagland makes a combination of this iron with EDTA. EDTA, all of you know that, ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, that is a chelator. So what is the role of this EDTA? It will hold the iron in their proper form so that iron can be available to the plant in their proper form instead of making any oxide. So Hoagland solution is the best mineral nutrient solution for the growth of the plant. You can take this table as a chart and how much it is required, it has been mentioned over here per liter. Accordingly you can supply time to time. This is the deficiency symptom. Let us say if iron is not there, then intravenous chlorosills will be there. Zinc is not available, then rosette habitat. Rosette means like that of the cauliflower. It will make a rose-like shape, which is not required. As well as internodal growth can be checked, and zinc is required for oxygen synthesis also. So it is a required. Likewise, in case of plant, there are two types of element. One is mobile elements. Mobile means they can move from one place to the another during this senescence condition. So let us say one is matured leaf will be there. If it is going to die, then what would happen? The nutrients may move from this part to the other parts of the cell, and these are the mobile elements: nitrogen, potassium, chlorine, sodium, zinc. But others are landline, immobile in nature. That means they could not move. Landline phone, you must have known, it cannot be moved. So likewise, these are the immobile elements which cannot move from that one. Let us say this mature leaf possesses this one. That means it cannot be taken up by the plant anyway. It will be gone in a destroy condition. So what are the other deficiency symptoms of the elements? I have highlighted some. Let us say boron is absent, then loss of apical dominance. Apical dominance is one of the feature of the oxygen that we will discuss. Likewise, the chlorosis or bronze-like color may appear when chlorine will be leaking, followed by, so these are the tables you have to remember by their particular terminology so that it will be easier for you. Okay. There is a scientist called as Lewis. According to him, whichever nutrient is required in very less amount, if it is not there, then the plant growth can be in halt condition. That means whichever present in minimum amount, it is a must required. You just mark that, let us say nitrogen is required in huge amount, and let us say 500 grams, and if it is supplied 498 or 490 grams, it can manage. But instead of, let us say, copper is required is 0.05 milligram, and if it is absent, the plant could not able to work. For that reason, he suggested this law, that is Levick's law of minimum. Now let us switch over to the next concept, that is solute transport. In case of solute transport, there are two ways. One is passive, another one is active. Passive means you can say that it can flow through mass flow or bulk flow. It can be moved. There is no question of energy to be utilized. Whereas active transport case, there will be involvement of energy. Why? Because already you have certain quantity. Okay. Again, you require more amount. Then you have to pull these ions towards itself. Likewise, the anions, let us say nitrate, then chloride, then phosphate, then sulfate, they have all higher internal concentration. That means inside the plant cell they have higher internal concentration, will be more. What does it suggest? They must be uptaken by active mode. Whereas the cations which are available in the plant cell in lower amount, that means they can be exported in reverse fashion, or you can say passive fashion. So mostly, if question may ask in the soil part which ions are more available, then you can say these cations are more available. And the cytosol and the vacuole generally taken up these ions and stored. Okay, and they were moving in symplastic and apoplastic way. I have already mentioned what is symplastic and apoplastic. Let us solve one. Okay, I will let us discuss this first. The ions may move if in the same direction, then we can call it as symport, and if the ions are moving in opposite direction, then we can call it as antipode. So one in this direction, another in this direction, by means of which the movement may occur. Now come to the how this movement occur in the phloem. Vascular bundle, I already told about the xylem 4 parts. Likewise, phloem having 4 components. First one is sieve tubes, second one is companion cell, third one is phloem parenchyma, fourth one is phloem fiber. Unlikely the xylem, here the companion cell and phloem parenchyma both are living in nature. Sieve tubes, initially it is living, but later on it is dead in nature. So it will support the system, and through sieve tubes the movement of here solutes. In case of xylem, the movement will be of the waters. So movement of these solutes, or rather photoassimilates from the kitchen house of the plant cell, that is chloroplast, or you can say leaves, from which the movement will be done. And it is supported by a protein named as P protein. P proteins are found in all dicots and monocots, whereas in case of gymnosperm it is absent. So how the movement can be possible? By means of a cell that is named as albuminous cells. Here it has been mentioned. Albuminous cells supports this system, the role of P protein. P protein helps in this process. And like that of the root hairs, there is a Casparian strip which stop the process. Here there is a part called as, if there will be sieve tube damage occur, then what would happen? There will be a callose deposition occur, okay, and it is made up of beta-1,3 glucan, which can stop the process of flow of this phloem assimilates. So how this movement occur, there is a concept called as source to sink relationship. Source means where you can find out the photoassimilates are stored, like that of the mature leaves where assimilates are produced. Sink means those areas which do not having this photoassimilates, or the you can say unexposed part of the plant or non-photosynthetic organ. So what would happen when there is requirement? The flow will be from source to sink. As well as important is that it maintain a osmotically generated pressure gradient. It was first of all given by scientist Munch, and that is pressure flow. Which pressure flow? The sink will be having less osmotic pressure, whereas source will be high osmotic pressure. Then there will be flow of this solutes or photoassimilate from source to sink, and it is moved in which form? Sugars. Sugars means here it is sucrose. Sucrose is considered as the transport sugar. Okay, sucrose is considered as transport sugar, which allows move from this leaves to the other parts. Okay, if you try to solve this question, let us say how the transport and photoassimilate occurs. The first option you just mark that it is apoplastic phloem. Apoplastic, all of you know that it is moving through the cell wall. So no plasmodesmata, that means it is correct. Second one is growing vegetative sinks usually undergo phloem unloading. Unloading here means they leave, there will be loading occurs, whereas the other parts which require this, that will be unloading. So the young leaves are generally connected with the other parts by means of the symplastic, that is plasmodesmata. So this is also correct. Whereas the third one you just mark, it has been mentioned only at the source and sink. Not like that. It may move, and it is given as water, not phloem assimilate. That's why it is wrong. And the fourth one is symplastic given, and here it has been mentioned absence of plasmodesmata. So it is wrong in nature. So answer will be only A and B. When we discuss about certain response in case of plants, it depends on a pigment called as phytochrome. Phyto means plant, whereas chrome means pigment. There are two pigments. One is PR, another one is PFR. P means phytochrome, R means red, whereas here FR is far red light. And it is interconvertible in nature. That means when PR form is there, if red light fall upon it, it is converted into PFR. Whereas PFR is there, far red light fall upon it, it will be converted into PR form. And the most active form is PFR. Most active form is PFR. What does it mean? If it is available in the plants, that means it will show the response. There are certain response showing over here, and it depends upon the phytochrome. Okay, so phytochrome must be the FR form of the phytochrome must be available. At times what would happen, during the shade condition, you must have found that bigger trees are there, below that small plants may grow. At that time the plants can try to extend their stem towards the light, and this response is called as shade avoidance. This is called as shade avoidance response. At that time what would happen, this RFR ratio will be decreased, and as because it is decreases, what would happen, they could not produce to they could not able to show their proper growth. That's why they try to extend their stem towards the light part. So this is one of the points. Now come to the hormonal feature. Let me finish in a rapid way. There are 5 different growth hormones are there, plant hormones. One is auxin, then cytokinin, then gibberellic acid. These are the growth enhancer, whereas 2 inhibitors are, one is ethylene, another one is abscisic acid. So auxin is the important. Auxin first of all discovered by Fritz Wendt. They found out that it is in Helena polyptyles. Polyptyl, all of you know that polyptyles are generally during seed germination. The first part produces your radical than plebule, but in monocots what would happen? There are two parts produced, one is coleorhiza, another one is coleoptile. So they have taken coleoptiles, they provided the blue light, and what would happen if light fall upon here, then the bending will tends to move towards that part, and they have found out that the several millimeters below the tip there is certain thing which is available which show this type of movement. Later on they found out that it is auxin, and auxin is one of the hormone which support polar transport. What does it means? Polar transport means it is synthesized in the shoot tip and it will move towards the root tip. So there is two opposite poles, that's why it is called as polar transport. From shoot tip to shoot base it will follow tip to base, that's why it is called as basipetal succession. Okay, whereas from this one the root base to the root tip towards tip it is called as acropetal. So both the movement found and it is named as polar. You have to remember this word polar transport. What might be the different function? So when it will enters into the one cell to the another, one cell entry means it is influx, whereas if it is moving away then it becomes efflux. So how it will move? Here you mark, inside the try to invade the cell, it must be in reduced form IAH. When it will try to enter into the cell, it must be in IAH form, whereas inside the cell it becomes converted into IA minus. During this process hydrogen ion moving out. Likewise when it is trying to again enter into another part, it accepts the hydrogen and it will move. Likewise one cell to the another, it moves from the one part to the other part. There are certain inhibitors are also there. These are the examples. Likewise gibberellins are involved in the bolting phenomenon, then seed germination. All these things can be supported by gibberellins. This is one of the examples where you mark the cabbage plant height is this much. So these are the phenomenon. I will upload this PPT. Okay, cytokinin is mostly depending upon the cell division process. Okay, these are the some of the symptoms that you have to remember. Because time is over, I have to stop over here, but if you have any query, it is most acceptable.
Okay, thank you very much Dr. Jitendriya Panigrahi for the nice presentation. I am sure that all the students must have benefited from the information which has been given, and I am sure this information will help you in cracking your entrance test for MSc. Thank you sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.